Hello, beautiful people of the internet. How are you doing today? My name is Jackie and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So in the year of 2018, I read a total of 31 books, which I know a lot of people on BookTube can read over 100 books in a year, but this for me was actually a really good reading year. My goal going into 2018 was to read 28 books, and I exceeded that by reading 31. So I was super proud of it, and today in this video, I thought I would tell you guys my favorite and least favorite reads of 2018. Now, these books on my least favorite list, I don't want to say they were bad books. I more so picked books that didn't live up to my expectations going into them, that disappointed me the most. So these aren't bad books necessarily, they just weren't what I was expecting or what I was wanting from them. So somebody else may really enjoy them, they just weren't right for me. Going through these books, I'm going to start off by telling you one of my least favorite, then alternate doing a favorite, a least favorite, etc., just for a little bit of variety. So starting off, my most disappointing reads of 2018 is what was by far my least favorite read of the year. I gave it 1 star. I think it may have been my only 1 star of the entire year. I don't own a physical copy of this book because I read it for school and I just rented it and then returned it when we were done with that class. And this book was The Lives of Animals by J.M. Coetzee. Now, this is a fiction book. However, even though it is a fictional story, the book is clearly using this fictional story to persuade you, the reader, to become a vegan. And while I was really interested in this book because veganism is something that I don't know if I could ever actually do it just because I love meat. I don't have a lot of self-control when it comes to what I eat. So even though I am sympathetic with the cause, I just don't know if I have the willpower to commit to a vegan lifestyle. I've thought about maybe becoming a vegetarian or eating meat less, maybe doing meatless Mondays. That's something I definitely want to do, is give up meat 1 day a week just to help the environment. So reading this book, I was really interested to see what it would have to say. However, there was one argument in the book that I found very offensive, and after I read that, I just immediately could not listen to any other points the book made because I thought it was so ridiculous, where the author compares people who eat meat in modern day America who benefit from the system that kills animals to Polish people who were apathetic to what the Nazis were doing to Jewish people during the Holocaust. And I just thought this was so offensive to compare people who eat meat to people who did not stop the Nazis, basically saying that we're the equivalent of Nazi sympathizers. And also, I think it's very anti-Semitic to use the suffering of Jewish people to support your own political opinion, to use their suffering to support your belief in veganism. And that argument just left a very bad taste in my mouth, so I couldn't consider any of the other points the book made because I just thought that was really ridiculous. I don't think anyone should use the Holocaust and the horrors of the Holocaust to support their own political opinions and their own agendas. Now, moving on to my favorites, by far my favorite read of this year was the first 3 books in a series. I love this series. It is possibly my all-time favorite. Maybe I have a little recency bias there, but I love the books. I will bring them up any chance I get, and those are the first 3 books in the A Song of Ice and Fire series by George R.R. Martin, which you may know as Game of Thrones. I read the first 3 books in this series in 2018. Book 1, A Game of Thrones, Book 2, A Clash of Kings, and Book 3, A Storm of Swords. Now I'm just going to hold up A Storm of Swords while I talk about this series because they're all very heavy, and this was my favorite out of the 3. I'm assuming most of you know what Game of Thrones is about. I'm assuming most of you have watched the television show, if not read the book. If you haven't watched the show, I would definitely encourage you because it is my all-time favorite television show. I absolutely love it, and I think the books are even better because in the books with the multiple perspectives and the longer storytelling, the ability to write hundreds of pages in a book, whereas TV shows only have 60 minutes per episode, you get so much amazing character moments. You get to see their deepest thoughts, see what motivates them, and that's what I really love about these books, is that I already loved the characters from the TV show, but the books give me a deeper appreciation for them. Book 3, A Storm of Swords, was my favorite. I gave book 1 5 stars, book 2 4 stars, and this one got 5 stars. There were just so many amazing moments in this book. There was one point where I almost cried. If you have seen the show or read the book, you probably know what infamous event I'm referring to here, but I won't spoil it in case you haven't watched the show or read the books. And if you haven't, I really encourage you to watch the show and hopefully read the books as well, because I love the show and I love the books even more. This is right now possibly my favorite series of all time because I just love the world and the characters so much. Now, another one of my most disappointing reads of 2018 was a sequel in a series, and that was Follow Me by Sarah Shepard, which is the sequel to The Amateurs, and I give this book 2 stars. I didn't love The Amateurs, to be honest. I think when I read that was a 3-star read for me. It was okay, but it wasn't great, but I didn't dislike it either. It was just very so-so. So I decided to read the sequel because book 1 ended on a cliffhanger. Now, this series is about a group of amateur sleuths who try to investigate cold cases. The problem with this book is that there really didn't feel like there were any stakes, any surprises, because we went this whole book knowing who the bad guy is. So there was just a lot of filler in terms of the plot because we already know who the bad guy is, and it feels like the main characters get no closer to apprehending him in this book. I also just personally don't care about any of the characters. None of them are interesting. The romance I find very bland, and there were certain plot elements in this book which were just ridiculous and did not make any sense and kind of insulted my intelligence almost as a reader because they were just so hard to believe that the characters could be that stupid. So I don't know if I can continue with this series because it's been such a disappointment to me, and I don't know if I'm going to read what Sarah Shepard writes anymore, which is sad because in high school I loved her books. But I just don't know if I can do it anymore after this one. It was a really huge disappointment. Another one of my favorite reads of 2018 was My Lady Jane by Cynthia Hand, Brody Ashton, and Jodi Meadows. This book is a magical historical fantasy retelling of the story of Lady Jane Grey, who was Queen of England for 9 days. I am obsessed with that era and history. I have had a lifelong obsession with the Tudor dynasty ever since I was young, reading children's historical fiction books about the Tudors. So how this book took one of my favorite periods in history and gave it this really funny, magical fantasy spin, I really, really enjoyed. I gave this book 4 stars. I did have one problem with one of the side characters coming off a little bit as Mary Sue, like too perfect, a little bit, I don't know if I want to say Manic Pixie Dream Girl, but sort of a historical fiction equivalent of a Manic Pixie Dream Girl. So that's why I didn't give it 5 stars, but overall, I thought this book was super fun. Even though it was written by 3 people, it flowed seamlessly as if it had been written by one person, and I laughed out loud while reading this. It was just what I needed at the time. It was fun. It was different from things I usually read, and that's why it was one of my favorites of 2018. Another book that I was really disappointed by in 2018 was The Mystery of Hollow Places by Rebecca Podos. I gave this book 2 stars, and I think sorry, the light is like blurring the cover. I think my main problem with this book is that I thought it was going to be a mystery thriller, and it really didn't read like a mystery thriller. This book is about a girl who is trying to find out where her father has disappeared to, and she believes it may be connected with the old disappearance of her mother who left her as a child. However, this book really did not have a compelling mystery. Where the father went really went exactly as I predicted. It was not really a mystery novel. It was more so a contemporary that had mystery elements. I did like how this book talked a little bit about mental illness, with her father having a mental illness. However, I found the main character so annoying. She was such a brat to certain people in her life, such as her stepmother and her best friend, and her crush on her best friend's brother was so bland and boring. Her crush character was just such a one-dimensional, generic white boy character whose defining character trait was that apparently he's a hot guy, and I just didn't buy it. I didn't like the main character, so I couldn't force myself to really care about this book, which is a disappointment. It just wasn't what I expected going in. The next book I just realized I don't have a copy of because I let my dad borrow it, so I'll insert a picture here in editing. I actually read this book twice in 2018. It is a classic, and it was assigned to me for 2 different classes. in one calendar year, and this book was Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I gave it 5 stars. It is now one of my all-time favorite classics. I just think Mary Shelley seems like she was a super cool chick, and I think that if I existed back in this time, I would have wanted to be friends with her because she sounds awesome, and I'm kind of obsessed with her now. Frankenstein is a book that a lot of people think they know what it's about because they've seen the images from old movies of Frankenstein's monster, green, with the bolts in his head and his arms out as he walks, and that's not what this book is about at all. Yes, there is Dr. Victor Frankenstein, who does create a monster from dead matter. However, the book is so much more complex and has so many great things going on. It is superbly written, and there's just so much interesting stuff in there, so many different feminism undertones, and it's just so interesting. Oh, there's my cat. If you have any interest at all in reading Frankenstein, I would really encourage you to, because it is one of my favorite books ever now, and it may be a little hard to get into at first, but once you get past the letters in the beginning, it is so amazing, and I think it's really worth it in the end. So if you have any interest at all, please read it. Now, one classic that I read for school this year which didn't live up to my expectations was The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. Again, I don't still have a copy of this, so I'll insert a picture because I just rented it for school. I don't still have it. Problem with this book wasn't the book itself, it was me. Because there is a plot twist in this book which I think most people know. However, you're not intended to know that plot twist until the very end of the book, or almost the end. So, me being a modern 21st century reader, reading Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, it wasn't surprising because I knew the twist. Now, I won't say what the twist is because I think a lot of people do know it, but there were some people in my English class who did not know the twist, and those are the people who ended up really enjoying the book. So if by some way or somehow you don't know the twist in Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, I won't tell you. It's very short. It's a novella, so if you want to read it, it's not long at all. It's a very quick read. And I ended up giving this book 3 stars because even though I didn't enjoy it, that's my fault, not the book's fault. If I had been reading it in the 19th century, I would have absolutely loved it, and it's just a shame that society has ruined this book for me by spoiling the big plot twist in it, and that was really a shame, and it was a disappointment. Another 5-star read of 2018, which really took me by surprise, pleasant surprise, was Dangerous Girls by Abigail Haas. This book has sat on my shelf for years, and I never picked it up, but I finally picked it up in 2018, and the ending blew my mind. This book is a mystery thriller which follows a group of friends who go on spring break to Aruba, and our main character's best friend is murdered while they are on vacation, and the main character is accused of killing her best friend, and she's working to prove that she didn't do it. Now, the entire book, there was one person who I was sure was the murderer, and I thought it was obvious. I thought this definitely had to be right, and then when the ending finally came around and we found out who committed this murder, my mind was blown. It was the last person I would have ever suspected, and I was reading this on a plane. I got to the last page, and I just sat there, staring at it for several moments, thinking, oh my God. And it was killing me that there was no one who I could talk to this book about, because it just blew my mind, and I had so many feelings. It had an amazing plot twist, which I always love it when a mystery thriller genuinely surprises me, so this was amazing. 5 stars. Highly recommend if you like mystery thrillers and you haven't read this yet. Now, the last of my least favorite reads of 2018 was, I think, the biggest disappointment of the year, because this was a very hyped mystery thriller. I love mystery thrillers, and I really wanted to love it, but it just didn't do anything for me. And that was One of Us is Lying by Karen M. McManus. I gave this book 2 stars. This book follows a group of students who are all in detention together when one of the kids in detention dies, and they're all suspected of murdering him because he was a gossip blogger who had intel on all of the other kids in detention with him that day. So it's trying to figure out who killed him. They all know they didn't do it. They need to find out who really did because everyone thinks they did. But I just couldn't get invested in this book. A lot of people have complimented this book for the characters in it, the main characters, and how real and relatable they feel, but I didn't find myself caring about any of them, to be honest. Part of it being a sort of murderous breakfast club means that all of these kids represented common high school stereotypes, and to me they felt one-dimensional. I didn't feel emotionally invested in them. The romances going on in this book did not compel me at all. I thought they were very generic YA romances. And the ending twist about who committed this murder, I did not like it. I didn't like it, and some people thought it was offensive. I don't think I was personally offended by it when I was reading it, but I can understand what other people were. I didn't like it. I didn't like that plot twist, and overall, this did not live up to the hype. I went into this book thinking it was going to be 5 stars, thinking I was going to be blown away by it, and it did nothing for me. It did nothing for me. I didn't think it was the worst book I ever read, but I can't say I liked it. The last on my favorites list for 2018 was, again, the first 3 books in a series. This is a hugely popular series. I think probably the most popular book series in the history of book series. Everyone's read it, except for me. So this year I read the first 3, and they were, for lack of a better word, magical. Yes, I am talking about the Harry Potter series by J.K. Rowling. This year I read the first 3 books, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, or Philosopher's Stone, if you're not reading the American version, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, and my personal favorite of the 3, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. I actually think I'm going to change my ratings around a little bit, because originally I gave book 1 5 stars, book 2 4 stars, and book 3 4.5 stars, but I think I want to reverse my ratings for 1 and 3, because even though there were some plot elements in Prisoner of Azkaban that I thought were a little ridiculous, it was the one that I enjoyed the most out of the 3 in spite of that. So I think this one is actually going to be 5 stars and book 1's going to be 4.5. Now, I'm pretty sure you know what Harry Potter's about. It's about a boy who finds out he's a wizard, and he goes to Hogwarts, a magical school, to learn how to practice magic. And I wish I had read these books when I was younger, because I do know a lot of the plot points, the character deaths that are coming up. But even though I know those things, I still really enjoy the books because the world is amazing. I mean, I'm wearing a Hufflepuff scarf right now, just like Newt Scamander's in Fantastic Beasts. Super proud Hufflepuff. I think the world is so great, so expansive. There's so many interesting things, magical creatures, magical places, so many interesting characters who I love. And that's what makes this book series so special, is that there's just so much magic in it. And not just literal magic, but magical characters, magical places, magical storytelling, and that's what I love about it. It's just fun and immersive. So everyone, those were my favorite and least favorite reads of 2018. Let me know in the comments what were some of your favorite books from this year and some of the books that disappointed you as well. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please give this video a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a magical rest of your day. Bye, and I'll see you next time.